Still frowning, he made his way around the front of the SUV. The driver, hands on hips, appeared to be focused on a distant mountain peak and ignored his approach. There was no one else in the car. He raked his gaze over the back of this silent figure. She might not resemble the girl from his childhood, but she had to be Paris. He pushed the car door shut. Her gorgeous, tanned legs came into view, along with sexy denim shorts that barely covered her cute ass. Whoa. Whatever else he did this week, he definitely wasn't hitting on his best friend's little sister. So stop looking at her ass. Paris? She slowly turned around. Massive sunglasses hid her eyes, but there was no mistaking those pouty lips, or the face that had been described as angelic by those who hadn't known her as a daredevil kid. Hey, Cooper. Her voice was husky, as though she'd just woken up, and graphic images flashed through his mind of her tangled in bed sheets wearing nothing but her own designer perfume. Damn, she's hot. Guilt prickled down his spine. Scott'd rip his head off if he knew the dirty thoughts running through Cooper's mind right now. It's going to be a long week. Not for the first time, Paris was relieved she could hide behind the dark shades she wore every time she left the house. Usually it was so she never made accidental eye contact with the paparazzi that tailed her like a bad smell. Right now, it had more to do with the fact that she couldn't tear her fascinated gaze from the vision that was Cooper Grayson. She'd been mad as hell when Scott had told her he'd hired his old childhood friend as her bodyguard for this week. She didn't care that he'd trust Cooper with his life, or that Cooper was in the private security business. This week was her last chance to get away from everything and clear her head before she confronted her mom about her future. No one knew about this hideaway, and the chances of the paparazzi finding her were low, considering she'd left a false trail to Europe. She'd only caved when her brother had told her if she didn't say yes to Cooper, then Scott would come with her instead. No matter how much he loved his firefighting job, she knew her brother better than to think he was bluffing about taking time off work. So she'd agreed, and then taken his car as payback. But one look at Cooper managed to suck every resentful thought from her head, and that was before he said her name in that sexy rumble. He was nothing like the faded memories of the devil-may-care 14-year-old boy from when they'd lived in the same rundown neighborhood. She was having a hard time tearing her gaze from his breathtaking biceps, which bulged just the right amount. How would it feel to have those arms around me? She licked her lips and tried to shove the thought from her mind. Except she couldn't get past the way his black t-shirt stretched over his impressive chest. Holy crap, his pecs are to die for. All the bodyguards she'd had over the last few years had been built. It was a requirement of the job, but not one of them had caused a single lustful thought to surface. She hadn't been in Cooper's company for 2 minutes, and all she could think about was getting naked with him. Never going to happen. That didn't stop her face heating. God, she hoped he thought she was suffering from sunstroke or something. It was one thing for strangers to think she had the same trashy morals as Lola, her Sunset Heights character, but for some reason she didn't want him thinking it. They hadn't seen each other for 10 years, and they were as good as strangers. He probably didn't even remember her from when she lived across the street from him. Unlike some from her past, when she'd made it big, he hadn't crawled out of the woodwork to share tales of her childhood with the tabloids. Need a hand with your gear? His question, so totally down-to-earth and non-sexual, managed to shatter her paralysis, and she finally dragged her attention to his face. Stubble grazed his strong jaw, and his eyes were hidden behind a pair of shades, but it was the dimple in his right cheek that mesmerized her. His slow grin sent a familiar shock through her. As a kid, she'd always had a crush on him, even though her mom thought he was the wrong kind of boy. Jesus, they hadn't known what the wrong kind of boy was.